Elena, you look very refreshed today. Did you do a shower or find an extra large coffee before we started?
Oh, thanks, James. Well, I actually did a very quick shower right after my morning walk because I was running a bit late.
Aha, I caught you. Did you hear that, everyone? Elena just said she did a shower.
Wait. Oh, no, you're right. I totally slipped up. I should have said I took a shower. My husband actually teased me about that yesterday, too. I guess I'm still a bit sleepy.
I'm so proud of myself for catching that. But honestly, I only noticed because I was reading about this last night. I was trying to figure out why English speakers use that word for everything. It turns out take is one of those powerhouse verbs. It's like a linguistic chameleon.
That is a perfect way to describe it. A chameleon. It changes its color or its meaning depending on the word it's standing next to.
Exactly. It's not just for showers. You can take a bus, take a photo, or even take a nap. It's a powerhouse because it does so much work in a sentence. I'm still trying to get used to using it naturally, though. Sometimes it feels a bit strange to use the same word for a bath and a vacation.
I feel you. It can be confusing at first, but once you master it, your English starts to sound so much more natural. It moves you away from those stiff textbook sentences that nobody really uses in real life.
I agree. My wife always tells me that my English sounds much better when I use these simple, flexible verbs. It's funny because I used to run into so many problems trying to find the perfect big word when take was right there all along.
Exactly. So that's exactly what we're diving into today. We're going to help everyone master this chameleon verb.
I love it. Here is the plan. First, we are going to look at the B1 basics, the essential stuff you use every single day. Then, Elena is going to help us with some B2 nuance to help us sound a bit more polished and professional.
And finally, we'll look at some common idioms so you can really catch up with native speakers during a casual conversation. It's going to be very practical.
I'm ready. And hey, for those of you listening, how about you? Do you ever find yourself saying, do a shower or make a photo? Don't worry, we all do it. If you want to keep improving your natural English with us, make sure you hit that subscribe button. It really helps us keep the coffee flowing and the episodes coming.
It really does. We love having you here with us. So James, are you ready to take on the first part of our lesson?
Let's do it. My dog is already napping, the coffee is hot, and I am ready to learn.
So James, since you're ready, let's start with a phrasal verb that everyone hears at the airport. Take off. But it's not just for planes, you know?
I know that one. I take off my shoes the second I walk through the front door. My wife actually gets a bit annoyed because I leave them right in the middle of the hallway.
Exactly. That's the physical meaning, removing something. But we also use take off to describe a sudden change in state, especially when something becomes successful very quickly. For example, my neighbor started a small hobby of making candles last year, and her business really took off during the holidays.
Oh, so it's like the business started flying. That makes sense. I wish my attempts at gardening would take off. I tried to grow tomatoes last summer, but they just stayed tiny and green.
I feel you. Gardening is hard. My husband is the same with his birdwatching hobby. He bought all this expensive gear, hoping his interest would take off, but now the binoculars just sit in a drawer.
I have a doom drawer just like that. Okay, so take off is for sudden success or leaving. What about take over? That sounds a bit more powerful.
It is. Take over means to assume control of something. You might hear it at work, like when a new manager takes over a department. It's a big transition.
I actually had to take over the grocery shopping recently. Usually my wife handles it because she has a very specific system, but she's been so busy at the hospital, I had to figure out her list, which was basically written in code.
That sounds like a challenge. Did you manage to catch up with her requirements, or did you buy the wrong kind of milk?
Let's just say I bought the wrong everything. I really struggled to get used to the layout of the store. I kept having to run into different aisles because I forgot things. How about you, listening at home? Have you ever had to take over a task that someone else usually does? It's not as easy as it looks, right?
It really isn't. Even small things, like when my cat tries to take over my desk. He'll sit right on my laptop while I'm trying to work. It's his way of saying he's in charge now.
That's hilarious. So, take off is for starting a journey or sudden success, and take over is for stepping in and taking control. I think I'm starting to get the hang of this chameleon verb.
You definitely are. It's all about that change of state, from being stationary to moving, or from someone else being in charge to you being in charge.
That really makes sense. But you know, speaking of being in charge, it's funny how much effort some simple things require. Like, it takes me ages to get ready in the morning because I never find where I put my keys.
That's a perfect example of a slightly more complex structure. We use it takes followed by a person and then the time or effort required. It's a great way to show the cost of an action. For me, it takes a lot of patience to look after my garden when the slugs are trying to eat everything.
I feel you. It takes my dog about 2 seconds to find a sock to chew on, but it takes me 20 minutes to make sense of which pair it belonged to. I really need to keep up with the laundry better.
Exactly. And when we use the structure, we often focus on the person doing the work. For example, it takes my husband a long time to choose a movie because he wants to read every single review first.
My wife is the same. I usually just pick the first thing I see. I guess I just assume there will always be something good to watch. Wait, there's another take expression for that, isn't there? When you just assume something will always be there?
You're thinking of taking something for granted. It's a bit more metaphorical. It means you don't appreciate something because you think it's permanent or guaranteed.
That's the one. I definitely take my morning coffee for granted until I run out of beans on a Monday morning. Then suddenly I realize how much I actually needed to function. How about you, listening at home? Is there something in your daily life you take for granted? Maybe your short commute or a neighbor who always says hello?
That's a great question. I think I sometimes take my husband for granted because he's so quiet and reliable. He just puts up with my terrible ukulele practice every evening without complaining once. I should probably thank him more often.
You definitely should. It's funny how take can go from something physical, like taking a bus, to something so emotional, like taking a person's kindness for granted. It really is a powerful word.
It really is. It moves from the outside world into our internal thoughts. When you take a situation for granted, you aren't physically grabbing it. You're mentally holding an assumption.
I love that. It's like my wife always says, it takes two to Timbuktu to make a marriage work.
Almost. The idiom is it takes two to tango. It means both people are responsible for a situation, whether it's a dance, an argument, or a success.
Tango, right. I knew it was some kind of dance. I'll get there eventually.
You will. Speaking of getting things right, have you ever heard a story from someone that sounded a little impossible?
Oh, all the time. My neighbor always tells these wild stories about these huge fish he catches, but honestly, I usually take it with a grain of salt.
Exactly. That is actually our first idiom for this part of the show. To take something with a grain of salt means to be a bit skeptical. You don't believe everything you hear because you think it might be exaggerated or not quite true.
I use that one a lot when my cousin tells me about his perfect business deals. He recently told me he was going to make millions selling vintage spoons. I definitely took that with a massive grain of salt. I mean, who even buys vintage spoons?
I see your point. It is a very common expression in business, or even just when you are reading things online. If a deal or a piece of news seems too good to be true, you should probably take it with a grain of salt.
How about you, listening at home? Do you have someone in your life whose stories you always have to take with a grain of salt? Maybe a friend who loves to exaggerate their gym progress, or a coworker who always has a secret tip?
It's a very useful skill to have. Now, let's look at another one. This one is also about how we behave in a group, to take a back seat.
Oh, like in a car. I actually prefer sitting in the back seat when my wife is driving. She says I'm a backseat driver if I sit in the front because I always tell her where to turn.
That is exactly where the idiom comes from. But metaphorically, to take a back seat means to choose a less active or less powerful role in a situation. You decide to let someone else lead for a while.
I had to do that recently at a local community project. I usually like to be the one to figure out the plan, but I was so busy that I decided to take a back seat and let a new volunteer lead the meetings.
That is a great example. Sometimes taking a back seat is the best thing you can do for your own peace of mind. My husband often takes a back seat when we are planning our weekend trips. He just says, "Tell me what time to be at the station, and I'll be there."
I wish I could be that relaxed. I always feel like I need to catch up with every detail, but I guess if you trust the person in charge, it's okay to let them take over while you enjoy the ride.
Exactly. It's about knowing when to lead and when to let someone else have their turn. It's funny how we run into these situations every day without even thinking about the language we use to describe them.
It really is. I'm starting to realize that take is basically the glue that holds my daily English together.
It definitely is the glue. And since you've become such an expert on this chameleon verb today, James, I think it's time for a little test.
Oh, a test? I wasn't expecting a pop quiz, but you know what? I'm feeling confident. I've been taking notes in my head.
That's the spirit. And for everyone listening at home, try to answer along with us. We'll give you a second to think before I give the answer.
Okay, challenge number 1. How would you change this sentence using the word take? Instead of saying, I received some advice from my neighbor, what's a more natural way to say that?
Give it a thought, everyone. The answer is, I took some advice from my neighbor.
Exactly. I actually took some advice from my neighbor about which fertilizer to use for my lawn, but I think I used too much because now the grass is bright blue. I'm not even joking.
Oh dear. Well, at least it's unique. What's the second challenge, James?
All right, number 2. Rewrite this. The flight is departing. Use a phrasal verb with take.
This one is a classic. The answer is, the flight is taking off.
Spot on. How about you, listening at home? Do you still get that nervous feeling in your stomach when the plane takes off? I definitely do. I have to hold my wife's hand every single time.
That's very sweet. Okay, what's the last one? Make it a hard one.
Okay, the boss level challenge. Transform this. He doesn't value his health. Remember that phrase we talked about earlier?
Think back to our B2 discussion. The answer is, he takes his health for granted.
Exactly. I think we've all been guilty of that. I certainly take my sleep for granted until my dog decides to wake me up at 4 a.m. because he heard a leaf fall outside.
I feel you. Well, you passed with flying colors, James. Now, before we finish, let's look at some of the great vocabulary we used today. I noticed a few words that our listeners might find really useful for their daily conversations. To figure out. To figure out. This means to understand something or find a solution to a problem after thinking about it.
I still can't figure out how to use the remote control for our new TV.
It took me a long time to figure out the best way to keep the slugs away from my lettuce. To catch up. To catch up. This means to do something you didn't have time to do earlier, or to talk to someone you haven't seen in a while to learn their news.
I really need to catch up on my laundry before it takes over the whole bedroom.
I'm going to meet my sister this afternoon to catch up over some tea. To run into. To run into. This means to meet someone unexpectedly.
I always run into my cousin when I'm wearing my old, messy clothes at the supermarket.
I often run into my neighbor when I'm out walking my cat in the garden. To get used to. To get used to. This means to become familiar with something so that it no longer feels strange or difficult.
I'm slowly getting used to the taste of black coffee, but I still miss the sugar.
It takes a while to get used to the quiet when you move from the city to the countryside. Polished. Polished. We use this to describe someone's skills or language when they are very high quality and professional.
I hope my English sounds more polished after today's episode.
My husband gave a very polished speech at his brother's wedding last month.
Wow, I really feel like I've learned a lot today. My brain is a bit tired, but it's that good kind of tired, you know? Like after a long walk with my dog.
I'm glad to hear it. But remember, the best way to really learn is to use what we've talked about. You can't just listen and expect your English to take off on its own.
I feel you. You have to actually practice, which brings us to the best part of the show.
Exactly. It is time for our challenge of the day. Today, I want all of you listening to take a moment and think. What is one thing in your life that you usually take for granted? Is it a hot cup of coffee? Is it your neighbor who helps you with the mail? Or maybe it's just having a quiet moment to yourself.
That's a great one. How about you, listening at home? Can you write a sentence in the comments using that phrase, take for granted? It's a bit of a B2 nuance, so give it a try. We would love to read them.
Please do. We read every single one. It really helps us figure out what you find most useful.
And while you're down there in the comments, if you enjoyed our little coffee shop chat today, please hit that subscribe button and give us a like. It really helps us catch up with more learners around the world. Plus, it makes my wife happy to see the show growing. And a happy wife means a happy life, right?
Very true, James. And don't worry if it takes a while to get used to all these different meanings of take. Just take it one step at a time.
Exactly. Don't try to take over the whole language in one day. Even I still run into trouble with these idioms sometimes. I'm going to go now and see if I can find where I left my coffee mug. I think my cat might have hidden it again.
Good luck with that. It was wonderful chatting with you all today.
Take care and keep taking your English to the next level.
Bye, everyone.